a demon lord who terrorized throughout the world, and his path to world conquest failed. But our protagonist, as a great hero, stepped up to the stage and challenged the demon lord in a final battle. The protag knows that if he fails to defeat the demon lord, the world will come to an end. So he prepared himself, and the demon lord lashed out a meteorite attack at him. The hero picked up a pebble and used it as his weapon to destroy the incoming meteor, but that was just a warm-up. Both parties decided to end their battle once and for all by going all out. The demon lord used his satanic power at full force, and the hero used his dragon annihilator technique. Their attack's collision caused such damage that the hero's hair turned white, but neither of them gave up and took each of their lives at the same time, ending the battle, and the hero finally saved the world. Many years later, a magic school named Rosewood Academy is created to teach the students to become strong like the legendary hero. A new student named Blade enters Rosewood Academy and gets excited upon seeing so many students going to the school. He decides that he is going to make everyone his friend here, in liable life as an ordinary person. From now on, Blade goes inside the academy looking to make new friends and greets everyone in the hallway, wishing them good morning. A group of 4 students gets weirded out seeing such a peculiar person and wonders where he got his enthusiasm from. Blade approaches them, introducing himself as the new transfer student, and manages to make them his friends. Blade realizes that at this pace, he can make 100 friends in no time, so he becomes excited once again. But one of the students in the group, Claire, doesn't think Blade would be able to make 100 friends, as he would have to befriend the entire student body. A girl named Arness sees them chattering, so she asks them why they're making a commotion in the middle of the hallway. She reminds the group that they have to be disciplined, as they are all students at the prestigious Rosewood Academy. While Arness is busy lecturing the group, Kasim tells Blade that Arness is the top student at the school and is also known as the Empress. That's why she is so full of it, and everyone is scared of her. Blade decides to make Arness his friend and happily introduces himself to her. Arness gets suspicious of Blade, as she has never seen him around here before. So, Claire tries to explain who Blade is and tells her that he just transferred here. But according to what Arness knows, the Academy only admits those who aspire to be heroes who protect this world, not some carefree loser like Blade. Blade also doesn't care about being a hero and tells Arness that he is only here to make friends. His half-hearted resolve angers Arness, so she tries to pick a fight with Blade. Still, Blade remains carefree and requests that Arness show him the way to the headmaster's office, as he needs to urgently go there. So, Arness takes him in front of the headmaster's office and knocks on the door, claiming to be with a loser. The headmaster tells Arness to come in, but Arness gets shocked as the voice is not the same as the headmaster's. She wonders who is speaking and gets more shocked to see that the person sitting in the headmaster's chair is actually the king of this empire. Arness immediately kneels before the king and also drags Blade to do the same, but Blade remains carefree as if he is acquainted with the king. So, Arness thinks that Blade is only being rude and apologizes to the king on her behalf. The king tells Arness that he has heard a lot about her from the previous headmaster and commends her for having an excellent academic record. Arness gets stuck with the line, "previous headmaster," so the king explains to her that he will be the headmaster of this academy from now on. Arness finds herself lacking words to express her joy at the sheer honor, yet she keeps going on about how excited she is to hear that His Majesty himself will be taking over this prestigious academy. The king stops her from going on before and asks her to leave his office as he needs to speak with Blade in private. So, Arness gets jealous of Blade as he is getting special treatment from the king himself and vents right outside of the office to make sure the king hears everything. Blade ignores it and asks the king what he is doing here instead of the actual headmaster. They both talk to each other as if they are old friends, and the king explains that he is only here to help Blade regain his powers as a hero. Blade tells the king that he just wants to be an ordinary person, but the king is determined to help Blade regain his powers and announces his plan to make a lot of changes in the curriculum activities to further help Blade. But Blade doesn't want to be a hero anymore as the Demon Lord has already been defeated. The king reveals that the battle that ended in a draw between the Demon Lord and the hero resulted in both getting stripped of their powers. The king also reveals that the great hero is none other than Blade. So, he wants Blade's great powers to be resurrected later at the training grounds. Arness sees Blade coming, so she asks him what his business is here. She tells him that this place is is strictly for the advanced class. So, Blade explains that when he took the entrance exam, he actually got admitted to the advanced class instead of the lower class like everyone else. So naturally, Arness assumes that Blade just used his nepotism powers to get in here, seeing how close he is with the king himself. She also assumes that Blade must have cheated in the entrance exam. If he didn't use the backing of the king, Arness goes on to lecture Blade for being carefree and grabs all of the students' attention because of her loud voice. Blade tells Arness that he is not carefree at all and is fully serious about making 100 friends here to prove his seriousness. Blade immediately goes to introduce himself to the students at the training grounds and makes everyone flustered. Arness gets super irritated, so Blade pats her head to calm her down. But instead of calming down, Arness becomes an angry tomato and attacks Blade with her great sword. However, she doesn't manage to land one hit as Blade is the main character here. A student named Sophie ends their short battle as the instructor is calling everyone to assemble. While Blade tries his best to make Sophie his friend, Arness goes to the instructor to ask him to test Blade's overall ability. Although this wasn't in the instructor's lesson plan, he cannot go against the great Arness Flaming's decision. So, Blade's ability training begins, and Arness tells him that to prove that he is worthy of being in the advanced class, he has to slice through the enchanted metal armor. Blade believes this to be a simple task and uses his legendary Dragon Series technique, surprising everyone, and the move Dragon Eater to completely destroy the metal armor. His attack is so strong that the shockwaves even destroy Arness's clothes, and she is sent flying away. Everyone at the training grounds except Sophie falls flat on the ground. So, Blade wonders if he went overboard with it. Arness, even in her unpleasant outfit, asks who Blade actually is, and Blade explains that he is just an ordinary person. Later at the cafeteria, Blade comes to eat with Arness and even tells his first friends of this school, Claire and her friend group, to hang out with him. But they don't come here because they are scared of Arness, and Arness knows of it as well. While Blade proceeds to eat the curry like a crazy person, Arness apologizes to him for accusing him of being unworthy of attending this school. But Blade explains that he doesn't even remember her accusing him. Blade finishes his meal and thanks Arness for helping him out earlier. He thought he wouldn't be able to make any friends here since he is a transfer student, but he considers Arness to be his friend. Arness gets embarrassed, as he is probably her first friend, and tells Blade that she also considers him her friend. Later at night, Arness returns to her room and gets secretly excited as she finally makes her very first friend. Her great sword suddenly starts shaking, and she remembers when her sword called her to it when she was just a kid. The sword told her to surrender herself to it, and she unknowingly touched it, turning her black hair flaming red. The same sword made her do unthinkable things, and now that she is becoming a bit soft, it calls her again to kill. But Arness no longer gets manipulated by the sword and controls it with her willpower. The next morning, she trains fiercely with her sparring partner Leonard, who is a lance wielder. Blade watches the fight as a spectator and cheers Leonard on. So Leonard decides to give him a good show and use his flashy moves against Arness. But he loses against Arness as she is the top dog, and she almost kills Leonard because of her sword manipulation. Blade realizes that something is definitely wrong, but decides to just keep an eye on it for now. Arness calls for the next contestant to battle against her, and Sophie steps up to take her on. Sophie prepares to fight with her metal-covered fists, and before the fight begins, she tells Arness to stop her rampage of taking everyone. But Arness doesn't listen to her and begins slashing her with her great sword. Sophie, however, blocks every attack with her metal fists and counterattacks with her punch. She manages to corner Arness so much that she resorts to using her flame magic infused with her sword. So Sophie admits defeat before things escalate further. But Arness isn't done fighting yet and calls Blade to be her next opponent. She claims that she can defeat Blade, even though his single attack shockwave ripped off her entire clothing last day. Blade hesitates as he sees that Arness is acting quite unstable. His speculations tend to be true as Arness faints after being burned into flames by her sword. Blade takes her to the hospital and tells the doctor to heal her, who also healed him after he fought against the Demon Lord. But the doctor explains she can do nothing as she can only heal people from diseases and injuries. According to the doctor's inspection, Ernest is conjured by a spell or a curse, which is outside of her expertise. That's why she cannot help cure her. Ernest regains consciousness and learns from Blade that she passed out on the training grounds. She doesn't remember and wonders if she did something wrong when she lost control of herself. But Blade assures her that she only fainted, so she gets relieved. The The doctor tells Ernest to take rest, but she claims she feels okay and wants to be discharged. So Blade assures the doctor that he will keep an eye on her and helps get Ernest back to her classroom. Although Ernest barely manages to stand, she decides to walk on her own as she cannot let the other students see her in this state. But Blade tells her that she can always lean on him because they are friends. Still, ego is bigger for a noble than being friends, so Ernest keeps walking alone and tells Blade not to tell anyone about her being ill. Afterwards, Blade goes somewhere alone in secret and enters the server room of the Rosewood Academy. He defeats all of the security bots and then looks up Ernest's sword data on the computer. He learns from the data that her sword is a demon sword called Asmodeus. So he realizes what's going on and goes to meet with Ernest, telling her that he knows about her great sword secret. They go to the roof of the academy to talk in private, and their Blade reveals that Ernest's demon sword has its own will and grants its owner tremendous power. However, he believes Ernest doesn't have full ownership of her demon sword because she can't control it. Ernest knows that as well and tells Blade that she unknowingly laid her hands on the cursed sword when she was 6 years old. The sword tried to take her over and overflow her with bloodlust. Even now, the voice of the sword commands her to burn everything. So the only way to cure herself of this curse is to become its true owner. Blade tells her she has to kill the demon inside the sword to become its owner, and he promises to help her do so. So Ernest, believing in Blade, challenges the demon Asmodeus living in her sword to a battle. But unfortunately, the demon takes over her, and she turns into a fire demon. So it's up to Blade to help Ernest swing against the fire demon Asmodeus. After saving Ernest from her demon sword Asmodeus, Blade starts a new day at the Rosewood Academy. He sparred with his 2 classmates at the training grounds, and the 2 classmates try their best to attack Blade, but they fail to even touch him. Ernest thinks that Blade is just being totally rude as he isn't even drawing his weapon in the mock battle. So she tells him not to disrespect his opponents by looking away during a fight. Blade notices that Ernest has changed quite a lot. She is flattered to hear that and asks Blade what he thinks she has changed. Blade imagines how Ernest looked before and after thinking hard for a while, tells Ernest that he has no idea what has changed about her. Even the side character Leonard notices that Ernest has changed her hairstyle, but it's quite saddening that Blade didn't notice. Ernest quickly moves on and assigns Blade to befriend another one of their classmates, Sophie. Blade sees that Sophie is fighting against empty air and wonders why she is always alone. Ernest explains that since Sophie joined the academy, she has always acted like an overly introverted type of person. Although according to Ernest, Sophie easily obeys any command she is given by anyone, which, to her, is not the best trait as she doesn't do anything on her own. However, when she met Blade, she voluntarily told him her name. Ernest thinks that if Blade tries to befriend Sophie, she might end up opening up to him. So Blade goes to talk to Sophie right away, while Ernest scolds Leonard for no reason and makes him run 10 kilometers so that he doesn't remain a weakling. Blade tries to talk with Sophie and straightforwardly tells her that he was assigned by Ernest to come here and watch over her. Sophie asks Blade if Ernest commanded him to do so, and Blade explains that it was more of a request than a command. Blade tells Sophie that he didn't come here just because of Ernest's request, but because he wants to help her train. Sophie believes that Blade won't be much help to her as she can only use her fists to fight. Blade asks if she can use any weapons, and Sophie tells him that she can't, as fighting with fists is all that she was taught. So Blade takes the initiative to teach Sophie other ways to fight and decides to teach her how to use a longsword. Sophie asks him if this is a command, since she only obeys commands, but Blade makes it clear that he only wants to lend her a hand as her friend. Even though this is not a command, Sophie decides to become Blade's apprentice as she has taken a liking to him. Before Blade can commence the training session, the bell rings, and the instructor ends the practical training class for today. Blade gets upset that he couldn't teach anything to Sophie and turns to her to see her smile for the first time. Blade tries to train Sophie again the next day and helps her learn how to channel her power into her sword. She tries to cut an iron armor with the sword but fails to even scratch it, so Blade thinks that she needs to add more power to her attack. He tells Sophie to think of sword as an extension of her body and then channel magical energy into it. He even demonstrates by channeling his own magical energy into the sword and cutting the armor as smoothly as paper. So Sophie understands, and after training all day, she also learns how to channel her energy and cut the armor with ease. With the training lesson coming to a successful end, Blade calls it a day. Sophie asks him if she can beat Ernest now that she knows how to use a sword. Blade doesn't think it would be easy as Arness is on a whole different level. So Sophie drops the sword and restrains Blade using her fists, proving to him that fighting barehanded is more suited to her than fighting with a sword. They both sit in a mount position, and Blade feels a bit weird, so Sophie lets him off. Before leaving, she tells him that she wants him to teach her something else the next day. We move forward to the next day, and for starters, Blade goes to meet with the headmaster, aka the king. The king asks Blade if his school life is going well, and Blade figures it's going pretty well as he has made some good friends. The king is delighted to hear that, as he always pitted Blade for having no friends, even though he was the world's greatest hero. After learning that Blade has taken an interest in Sophie, the king tells him that even though Sophie is strong, she is incomplete. He reveals that Sophie's goal was to surpass Blade's powers and tells him about the artificial Great Hero Project. According to the king, a few scientists believe that it would be possible to create a being as strong as their greatest warrior and began experimenting on the subject, Sophie. Using ancient lost and forbidden knowledge to perfect their experiment, the scientists even duplicated the original human and performed countless experiments on them. The king reveals that Sophie's actual name is Sophisha Finto, which means she is the 12th iteration of the human Sophisha. Blade can't believe someone can do something so cruel and even goes on to raise his fists against the king. The king calms him down and tells him not to worry as the worst is over. He even claims to have put an end to these vile experiments himself using his royalty. The king goes on to explain that after disbanding the experiment, he took Sophie in and gave her the freedom she wanted. But Sophie never did anything at anyone's command. Blade realizes how Sophie was robbed of a normal life for the sake of creating a great hero and blames himself for that. He decides to make sure Sophie gets a normal life like everyone else, but even he doesn't know what. So he goes to take advice from his doctor to learn what's normal and asks her what kind of things kids his age normally do. She thinks he is asking for something inappropriate and starts to teach him about youth. But before she can say anything else, Blade leaves her chamber and goes to ask Leonard what youth is. After getting love as the answer from Leonard, Blade then runs to Claire and Jessica, begging them to tell him about love. She tells him that love is about going on dates. So he quickly runs to Arness's room to learn from her about dates. Arness gets flustered thinking Blade is asking her out on a date, and she tells him that usually couples go walking around town, talking, and shopping. But she tells him that she cannot accept it because they are not that close yet. Even though she rejects Blade, she is the one left hanging as Blade tells her that he is going off on a date. He rushes to the girls' changing room and immediately barges into their showers. He then asks Sophie out on a date, which she gladly accepts. Later, Blade's 3 other girlfriends keep an eye on him so that he doesn't try any more funny business. As the giant clock rings, Sophie approaches Blade right on time. She tells Blade that she doesn't know anything about dates, but Blade tells her not to worry as he claims to have done a lot of study in this field. He reads a dating book for dummies and starts their date by walking arm in arm together. The two keep walking together, eat ice cream, and then go to a famous fishing spot. Then the one-time couple goes to a gaming station and completely wrecks the place. While the 3 girls apologize to the owner on behalf of Blade, he takes Sophie to a restaurant to eat together. They drink from the same coconut together, being all touchy-feely, which makes Blade's heart pound like a train. But he keeps doing it as this is a must on a date. Blade wonders why he hasn't noticed the 3 of them yet, even though they are sitting at the table right next to them. Arness can't take it anymore, as she thinks of Blade and Sophie's acts as completely impure. She gets super jealous seeing them together, so Claire offers her a glass of ice cream to calm her down. She keeps eating like a hog to cure her sadness, and in the meantime, Blade and Sophie leave the place. After going to another place, Blade wonders what happened to his mysterious follower, as he doesn't sense anyone following him anymore. He moves on and opens the book to see what's next on the agenda. But according to the book, they have apparently run out of time to do their next task. So Blade becomes upset. However, Sophie lends her hand, telling him not to worry, and they dash together as fast as lightning to reach their next destination. After speedrunning everything else, Blade and Sophie sit together beside a fountain in the evening. Blade tells Sophie that he has heard this is a legendary fountain, but Sophie doesn't understand what's so legendary about a mere water-sprouting fountain. Blade tells her that he also didn't understand, which makes Sophie smile as she realizes that he is similar to her. She thanks Blade, saying she had fun today, which makes him blush. She asks him why he is going through all this trouble. Blade tells Sophie that he thinks of her as his friend, so as a friend, he wants to see her happy. But Sophie reveals that she doesn't consider Blade her friend as she has heard friends don't keep keep secrets from each other, implying that she has realized that Blade is keeping a secret from her. Blade tries to make an excuse, and Sophie tells him not to worry as she reveals that she has also kept a secret from him. Sophie reveals to Blade that she is not an ordinary human, but an incomplete test subject created to be an artificial hero. She tells him that she was granted artificial great hero powers and demonstrates her powers to him by bending the steel fence. She explains that she has the powers to alter the law of physics itself, but at the same time, she doesn't have any control over that power. She proves that she doesn't have any control as the bent steel fence begins to attack her and constricts her in midair. Sophie negates her magic and then shows Blade that she can manipulate gravity by crushing the ground by just falling. However, she explains that she has magnified her body weight by 1,000 times, yet she fell to the ground with 10,000 times her intended force. Blade realizes how dangerous Sophie is and decides to help her, but she isn't done showboating her powers yet and reveals that she can even stop time itself. Her showboating ends as she runs out of mana and explains to Blade that she can only manifest this divine power for 10 seconds. Sophie then tells him everything about her being a mere experiment tool and how she is just a clone of someone else. As Sophie has told Blade everything about her, Blade decides to reveal his secrets as well. He hesitantly reveals that he is the great hero. Well, actually, he was the great hero as he doesn't have any powers anymore. Sophie doesn't feel surprised and already assumed that since he felt a little similar to the great hero. Blade apologizes to her as he thinks of it as his fault for causing Sophie to go through many harsh experiments. He knows a simple apology won't fix anything and tells Sophie that she can't resent him if she wants. Blade apologizes to her again and reveals that the power she has is a curse, and he had the same powers himself. Blade blames God for giving him powers that he didn't want and blames the people for making him do things that he didn't want to do. He explains that his people made him fight ferocious monsters at the age of 3 when he was supposed to be with his parents. He resents the people for not being able to save everyone, even though he tried his best. That's why he considers his powers a curse. Sophie comes to console Blade and tells him that he should be proud of himself as he has saved literally millions of people. Sophie tells Blade that she also takes pride in the fact that she was created to be his copy and wants to be more like him. So Blade finally gets a hold of himself and thanks Sophie for being a good, comforting friend, ending their date. This video ends here. Thanks for watching this part. If this video gets 200 likes, I'll know you guys want me to continue this series and soon upload the next part. The link to the video will be in the description and pinned down in a comment in the comments section. See you later.